Hey everyone, it's Lisa Bongean from Primitive Gatherings, and today I get to introduce my blockhead, block number 11, called Folk Star. Now this is the big center star if you're making the medallion quilt that I'm making. So I want to explain how I tackle a quilt block. Now, these blocks that we've been doing, some of the sizes have been oversized and you have to trim down. I technically don't like to work that way. I like to work in true sizes. So I'm going to explain to you how I've tackled this block, and I'm going to make it much simpler than what I think is offered here. So I want to maybe educate you a little bit on how to break down a block and how to discover what each unit size should be. Okay? All right, so when you look at this block, I've kind of did some really rough drawing in this. So when I look at it, this unit right here could be one big flying geese. I don't have to piece all these little triangles and squares and rectangles to make this. So I simplified that down. Now this block finishes at 27 inches. So what we do is you work from finished size and then you add on your seam allowance. But you have to figure out what your finished sizes are first before you can figure out what your cut sizes are. So if you look at this block, it's 27 inches because the directions tell us it's 27 inches. So I take my calculator and I put in 27 inches, and this looks like 1, 2, 3, like 4 units, like a 4-grid block. So I want to know what this star measures. So if I divide by 4, that gives me 6.75. And then 2 of them together, so times 2 equals 13.5. And then this would be another 6.75. But that's finished size. So now for block A, I got to add on a 1/2 inch because that's the seam allowance. So if I add on a 1/2 inch to 6.75, and you can use your calculator or not, but then 6.75 plus 0.5 equals 7.25. So up here I'm going to write 7.25. That's the cut size for that square. So then this flying geese unit in here is 13.5. So in order to figure out the measurements for a flying geese unit, we are going to take 13.5, and in order to figure out the seam allowance for a flying geese, the big goose part here, you need to add 1.25 for the seam allowances. So if I add 1.25, that equals 14.75. And again, this one is 7.25. Now I need to know what these little half square triangles are. So now I know the big sections. Let's figure out what one square is in this unit here. So if this is 6.75 here, and there's 3 squares that match up to this 6.75, 6.75 divided by 3, that gives me the finished size of each one of these squares or half square triangles. So that is 2.25. So I'm just going to write that down somewhere, 2.25. All right, so now I have to add on seam allowance, or if it's going to be used as a half square triangle, I need to figure out what those squares need to be in order to get a half square triangle measurement for that. So 2.25 plus 0.875, which is 7/8. So the measurement for half square triangles is 7/8 inches. So that means 3 1/8 is what I need to cut a square in half once diagonally to get that measurement. So 3 1/8. So those are all the measurements I'm working with. And that's how I decipher what needs to be cut, is I figure out the finished measurement, and then I go with adding the seam allowances. So some of you are really going to get that, and some of you it's going to be like clear as mud, but the more you do it, the better you will get at it. And I do want to point out that I starch my fabrics. So every one of my fabrics have been starched, and that gives me a much better precision in cutting and sewing and everything. So I would not be doing this without starching my fabric as well. Okay, so then I have another secret arsenal in my toolbox, and that is triangle paper. So I need 2 1/4 inch finished half square triangles. So this paper does all the math for me. So in order to do this block, I need, let's see, I did my measurements here. So here is what you're going to need for each piece of this block. So I need 36 total half square triangles, which is this piece right here, and I did it a blue and a light. And I'm going to show you how to get those papers prepped for that. So in order to do 36, my paper here does 30 per sheet. So I need 6 more. So I'll show you how easy that is to do. So I'm just going to take my paper here, and I'm going to trim off the outer edge all the way around. And just FYI, I am a proud member of the Close Enough Club. All right, I don't need to make everything I do exactly perfect. If I nip off a point here and there, oh well, okay, that's just the way it is. Some of you may not like that, but you'll get over it someday, just like I did. To me, finished is better than perfect. All right, so now this one is ready to go for 30 of my triangles, but I need 6 more. So, and each one of these squares makes 2. Now I need this line, so I'm just gonna waste this one right here. So this one right here is no good anymore, but these other ones are still good, so I'll save that for later. So now, I'm all prepped to make 36 half square triangles. So what I'm gonna do is I am gonna layer these with a light, which is this one, and a dark on the bottom, right sides together, and I have a picture for you this. I did some stitching at home, and we are going to insert some of my rough home video here for you because I didn't want to see you watch me piece 36 half square triangles, so we're going to do it quickly. All right, so these are the 2 fabrics I'm layering right sides together. This paper goes on top of the light, just like this. You can make this 2 separate ones, or you can sew this as one shot. You can do all that and then add this one. Sometimes it's easier just to cut this one and piece these 2 together, and you'll see that in my video. So all of the instructions for doing the triangle paper, I kind of talk about it while I'm doing it in the video that Kaylee will insert for you here. So this is how I stitch triangle paper. I'm going to first shorten my length of my stitch on my machine. So I usually stitch a little bit under 2. I'm going to move that to 1. So about half of what I normally stitch at. Now I'm going to stitch on all of these shaded dashed lines. So I've chosen the small one here for a quick little video, but I will continue to do the other sheet as well for a total of 36 half square triangles. So this paper is going to make everything so much easier as far as stitching goes, as far as cutting goes, and pressing. Everything will be easier with this triangle paper, and everything will come out to be the right size that we need for this block 11. All right, I'm gonna get going then. I'm using my knee lift so I don't ever have to use my presser lift here in the back. And then also use your thread cutter. it's as simple as that. I'm stitched on all of the dashed lines. Okay, now it's time to trim all of your triangle paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim the outer edge of both of my pieces. And you want to be exactly on that line, so you don't see any line here or any line there. So you want to get it nice and perfect. I made it super thin so you knew exactly where to cut. All right, so all the way around, and then I'm going to cut the long ones here. And then without moving anything, I'm going to slide that over and then cut the short ones. All right, now that I have all of those, I'm going to cut them apart on the diagonal. And as long as the diagonals are still intact here, I'll cut a couple of these. So I have all of them cut. I'm going to put them all in a pile, and then I'm going to go over to the ironing board and we will press them over there. All right, I'm back at the iron, and now I'm going to take all of these half square triangles and flip them over so that the dark is on top. All right, then I'm going to pick them up and press them to the dark. I am using steam. So they're easy to pick up and to press back. The next step is to remove the paper off the back. So with my non-dominant hand, I'm going to hold right close to the stitching here, and I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to pull right from the middle out, and that pulls everything off very nicely because of our short stitches here. And then we'll just continue to do that until every one of them has the paper removed. So if you want to see that done one more time, I'll do it again. So hold it nice and close to the stitching. Put your hand in right in the middle, right here, and pull from that middle, and then pull the last one off. Okay. I'll continue to rip these off, and we'll be back for the next step. Okay, time to cut off the dog ears. So I'm just going to snip these off just like that with my scissors. You can use your rotary cutter and a ruler if you like, but there's no need to trim these. These are the right size that we're going to need for our block number 11. You can also do this, lay them like that and go snip, 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 turn it and do that. And then I have my little jar here of all of my previous triangle seeds, quilt seeds I call those. I save them all in a jar just because it's pretty. And there's something satisfying about knowing that that's how many triangles I have made. And don't worry, that's not my only jar. I have several jars filled. Okay, so I'll continue to clip these off until I'm all done. All right, so then once all your triangles are done, then you're going to come back to this. So I need red triangles. So I kind of have my block here for you, but it's not complete. We're going to finish it here. So do you see how I picked out my fabrics? I made this one big half square triangle here, and this is a flying geese, so you don't have all that piecing in there. So my only piecing are these triangle units. So I've really simplified this block down tremendously. And here is the last, so I have this. So this piece that I have here next will be sewn onto this to make one big flying geese unit. And then I have my 2 corner squares here as well. So that's what it's going to take to complete that block. And yes, this is a different fabric than these two because I was just using scraps of my fabrics that I have laying around from making other projects. So 36 half square triangles, we got those done in that previous video. And then we need 18 3 1/8 inch squares because that is the measurement that we came to earlier for these guys right here to match up with the triangle paper half square triangles here. And then we need the white center triangles. Those are those big triangles right here with the star print. So we need 2 of those cut 7 5/8. And remember, this is exact. And I do that for a reason, because then I know what I need to match up against is true. And then of the background fabric, which I have this light gray for this block because it's in the center, I need that flying geese unit. So this is 14 3/4 cut in half twice. All right. And then we need 4 7 1/4 inch squares for the corners. That is your cutting list, simplified. Okay, so now all I have left to do is to piece this triangle unit. Okay, so let's get that going. And I usually at home, I'm stitching with like a medium gray. I have light in here, it should still work. So I have these 2 already pieced together, these 2 pieced together, so I'm just gonna add this one here. And when you do this, you put this on just like so, and gotta get it off of there. And you line it up so everything matches nicely. And you should have a nice big 1/4 inch piece hanging off the end. It shouldn't match up perfectly. You should have that point there. So I'm going to stitch that here. Okay, so this one I pressed that way So this one I'm gonna press this way. Yep, so that one's gonna go that way. So you're gonna alternate these seams. This one's going that way, that one's going this way, and this one gets added to the top. This one, you're just going to press that up. I'm just giving it a finger press right now. Now this one is going to go this way, nesting that seam. And if you want, you can press open. These are just big, so I don't think they need to be pressed open. And then you're just going to pull that back a little bit to make sure that nestles in there. And just for security reasons, I'm going to stick a pin in there. And then we can stick a pin here too as well. So I have my nice little 1/4 inch poking out there. That's what we want to see. And pretty soon you'll get really good at even eyeballing those. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so now I'm going to open up the seam using my pressing stick. Okay, now we have our triangle, and I'm just going to trim these little dog ears off right there. Oh, I think I have a smaller ruler in here. So I'm not going to try to run from here to here. I'm just going to put my ruler. So I'm looking at the 1/4 inch here. I'm looking at the 1/4 inch there, and I'm just going to trim that off. Perfect. All right, now I'm going to gather the rest of my parts here for make my flying geese unit. There we go. So I'm going to lay this here, and then I'm going to measure, line up my points. And this isn't always going to be perfect with all these pieces in here. So we're going to pin that seam there. Oh, I turn that one a little bit, put a little pin in it so it stays flat. And then you see how I have just that 1/4 inch peeking out? That is what we want to see. Now sometimes if yours is a little bit wonky and you have to pull it or fudge it a bit, that's part of it, and it's okay because that's the bias there. So if it's not laying there perfectly, you can kind of make it go where you need it to go. All right, so I'm going to put one little pin in here. And then I'm going to stitch on this side because I can see where my points are here and whether I'm going to nip one off or not, which I don't think I am. It looks really good. Pins out, and let's see what we got. We got our 1/4 inch up there, and I just missed my points by a little bit. I'm good with that. So now I'm going to press this just back, just like that, where it kind of naturally wants to go. If you want to open that, you can. All right, so now I just got to finish these 2 squares here. So we're going to put those on. I kind of tend to cut my dog ears off later. A pin here. And this isn't exactly matching up, but I'm going to make it match up. So I'm off just a smidge, It's okay, I got a little bit of bag there, but I'm going to put that down toward my feed dogs, and that'll just get sucked right up. I'm using this little leader and ender because pretty much every time I do a video, I'll unthread my machine because I'm just pulling stuff out too fast and not paying attention. So I don't want my machine to unthread. So that's why I'm using that leader and ender in there. Oh, this one looks much better. Okay, so we're gonna pin this one as well. And I like to pin toward my seam, and I leave a 1/4 inch so I don't have to pull out my pins. I don't ever sew over them. I have a kind of a Mod Podge of different pins in here. So again, a little bit baggy here, so I'm going to put that toward the feed dogs. And then I can see where my triangle points are as well. Behaving today for some reason. Okay, now let's see, what did I press these? Okay, toward the square. So I'm pressing toward the square. Take my pins out. So do you see how I didn't get frustrated when that didn't exactly match up? I just made them match up and stitched them, and now we're all good. Okay, so now this one goes to here. So we're gonna flip that. I'm gonna hit that back right there. I must have turned a seam. Yeah, see, kind of lazy sometimes. I don't cut off dog ears if I don't have to. So I'm going to match up my center point. We're at the center of this, right in that point there. Put a pin in it. And then anything else around here that needs to match up, like these two. And then the end. I'll pull in that again. Put one in the middle of that. That's my center. Okay. Okay. Had a little bit of a rough start there. Always stuff happens when you're filming. Stitch the wrong pieces to the wrong ones, flip the side. It's so easy to do because you're so nervous about everything else. All right, one big seam. It looks like I pressed that one open, so now we're going to press this one open as well. I'll move this over a little bit. Put my stick on there. And it's always nerve-wracking not stitching in your own studio, or your own sewing space. Okay, now here's where I check. We're a smidge. Got one that ain't exactly perfect, but we don't care. We're leaving it. In the whole scheme of things, close enough is good enough, like I said. Okay, so it's a really nice big chubby block here, but there it is. So I hope this helps simplify this block for you and that I didn't make it too confusing, but now it should measure 27.5 inches because remember it has its seam allowance on it. All right, so I hope you enjoy the rest of Blockheads and thanks for hanging out with me today making Folk Star Moda Blockheads 6, block number 11.